for something to do. Let's see. Would you mind if I approach you?
Charles Manson was born Charles Mills Maddox and was the son of Kathleen Maddox. Kathleen was 16 years old and was a prostitute as well as an alcoholic. Charlie often got into trouble and was in and out of boys' school. As a teenager, he often escaped from the schools and would rob stores for money and also stole multiple automobiles. By the time he was 32, he had spent half of his life in prison. Probation reports described him as suffering from a marked degree of rejection, instability, and psychic trauma.
Be here anymore. Quit your complaining, boy. I'll do anything for a cigarette. Stay here. Mom, I don't want to be left here. Where are you going? Stop your whine.
In 1955, Charles married Rosalie Jean Willis, moved to California, got her pregnant, and she gave birth while he was in prison for 3 years. She not long after left Manson for another man. He married again to a girl whom he was a pimp for, Candy Stevens, who gave birth to Manson's second child, Charles Luther, and he was arrested for pimping for 10 years. After being freed from prison, Manson moved in with Mary Brunner and later had his third child with her in 1968, Valentine Michael, aka Pooh Bear. During this time out of jail, Charlie built up his family. After spending a big majority in prison, Charles was deemed crazy.
People look at you today, 20 years later, and they still have no idea what you're about. Tell me in a sentence who you are.
Nobody. I'm nobody. I'm a tramp, a bum, a hobo. I'm a boxcar and a jug of wine. And a straight racer if you get too close to me.
As his family grew, they mostly lived at Spawn Ranch for free by having a member of the family, Lynette Frome, or known as Squeaky, and other women have sex with George Spahn, the 80-year-old blind owner, and had girls be his seeing eye. Manson got his murderous ideas from the Beatles' White Album, that they also predicted a black uprising after the Martin Luther King Jr. assassination. This is also where he got the name Helter Skelter from. As part in planning the Manson murders, which were to start a race war between whites and blacks, the family created music, which contained subtle messages to create chaos in the race war. The first murder done by the Manson family was by Manson himself. He killed a black drug dealer named Bernard Crowe, and Charles stated that Crowe was part of the group of the Black Panthers, in hopes that they would retaliate and kill white people. Next, two family members named Bobby Basula, Mary Brunner, and Susan Atkins killed a man named Hinman, and tried framing the Black Panthers by writing "Political Piggy" in blood with a panther symbol with it. After the Hinman murder took place, the next murder was the Tate murder on August 8, 1969. Before they could actually get to the Tate residence, family member Tex killed Stephen Parent by shooting him 4 times in the chest and abdomen. The family killed famous pregnant actress Sharon Tate, Jay Sebring, Abigail Folger, and Wojciech Frykowski.
Beautiful children. Tomorrow is the night. Be sure to bring extra clothes, your driving license, and a knife. To gut them. This is something big. This is the start of something new. Get on it. Ready? You know what I mean, guys? Something witchy.
Get down.
Six members of the Manson family traveled to Lino LaBianca and his wife Rosemary's house, directed by Charles Manson. Manson had already detained both victims by tying them up. Watson then proceeded to stab Lino with a bayonet. During this, he heard a noise from the bedroom where Rosemary was being held. She had fought back with a lamp, which cord had been wrapped around her neck. He had subdued her by stabbing her a couple of times. Once finished, he went back to Lino and killed him by stabbing him a total of 12 times. All members then took part in the killing of Rosemary, who received a total of 41 stab wounds. After she had already passed away, before leaving, the family left "Rise" and "Death to Pigs" written in blood on the wall. Charles Manson now attends Corcoran State Prison, where he is living out his life sentence. He is now an old man, 79 years old, with all types of disabilities, bad hearing, bad lungs, and bad teeth. He recently married a 27-year-old named Afton Burton.
Staff debated among ourselves whether to air his answers. Half of our staff said absolutely not. Even though Manson doesn't make a cent off this book, let's not give him any publicity. But another half said yes, believing that some of you are as curious as some of us are. Well, at any rate, here is what Manson had to say.
Charles Manson is serving his life sentence for murder in San Quentin Prison. That is where we talked with him and with Newell Emmons, author of Charles Manson in his own words. Our conversation lasted an hour and a half, during which Manson was sometimes lucid, sometimes incoherent, and frequently manipulative.
From your words, as Mr. Emmons quotes them in this book, it's clear that you were guilty of murder, and yet he says in all his conversations with you, he never heard you express remorse. Have you never felt it?
Remorse for what? You people have done everything in the world to me. Doesn't that give me equal right? I can do anything I want to you people at any time I want to, because that's what you've done to me. If you spit in my face and smack me in the mouth and throw me in solitary confinement for nothing, what do you think's going to happen when I get out of here? Guilty. I wouldn't do anything that I felt guilty about.
You don't feel guilty at all?
There's no need to feel guilty. I haven't done anything I'm ashamed of. Maybe I haven't done enough. I might be ashamed of that, for not doing enough, for not giving enough, for not being more perceptive, for not being aware enough, for not understanding, for being stupid. Maybe I should have killed 400 or 500 people, then I would have felt better. Then when I felt like I really offered society something. You know, if I wanted to kill somebody, I'd take this book and beat you to death with it, and I wouldn't feel a thing. It'd be just like walking to the drugstore. Do you feel blame? Are you mad? Do you feel like wolves kebabs right frantic? Get frantic.
Newell Emmons is an ex-convict who first met Manson in prison in the 50s. He claims he wrote the Manson book after 7 years of conversation with Manson to show that he's no leader, no guru, but just a loser.
Why should anyone care to read this book?
My purpose when I first started was virtually to destroy the myth. I showed that he's not as complex or as the occult leader, or etc., that he's been projected as being.
I don't fit in society, and I am incompetent. I'm definitely incompetent.
No, that's not what I said.
Well, I say that. I say that. No, there's nothing wrong with being incompetent because you don't have to do as much. If you're competent, then you got a lot to do. See, but there's another aspect of it too. I've learned to reflect. I just reflect back. I know I don't know. I know I'm stupid. I admit I'm a petty whatever. I've never been a success at anything. I even got to the point where I didn't want to be a success at anything. What would being a success, what does that mean, you know? Money? Oh, I've had all the money in the world 3 times and I had to give it back. That's a stupid little game, you know? My awareness and my consciousness is not the same as somebody that goes to school and has a mom and dad. See, not having parents have left me in another dimension, so to say, you know. I don't have no bad going for nothing. I don't judge. I hardly even think about too much. It's hard for me to remember breakfast. In fact, if I didn't have 2 or 3 girls to help me, I would pretty much be lost and I wouldn't know what the hell I'm doing.
You write that in all your conversations with Charles Manson, he never expressed remorse.
Have you seen any today? I mean, perhaps he believes totally in his own mind that he's not guilty.
You guys got this stuck in your head that I've murdered somebody. You've got it stuck in your brain that I murdered somebody. What do you want to call me a murderer for? I've never killed anyone. I don't need to kill anyone. I think it. I have it here.
Who is this man you've been talking to for 7 years?
Well, to me, he's a convict that was a failure. I mean, he's the person that is not capable. I mean, and I still lay it to the way the book reads. It wasn't to start cleaning the earth or anything. I mean, there was a drug burn that initiated the first one, and the black guy, the first tone of violence that surfaced anyway. And then the death of Gary Hinman, there again it was dope related, and it just kept feeding from there, and so it had no spiritual aspects at all. It was just a bunch of guys out there, kids out there that was living and doing their own thing, and it used to be party time and play time, and then through drugs and the whole bit. Well, it started getting a little bit nasty, a little bit meaner, and first thing you know, there's murders.
In my whole life, I've burglarized a grocery store, stole some nickels and dimes, busted open a stamp machine, stole a few automobiles, and cashed a couple checks. I'm a petty car thief. I've been with prostitutes and bums and winos and all my life. This street is my world. I don't pretend to go uptown and be anything fancy. I can, but I find more real in the world that I'm in than I do the tinsel. And the real world is the one I have to deal with every day.
You'd have to understand what acid does to the mind in order to understand how a person can get confused behind drugs. And I would take a thesis writing a book on what LSD can do to the mind. But
it was powerful enough to keep you in a fog for all those years, even after you stopped using it.
I used to think that you came down off an acid trip after 12 hours. That's not true. Every time you take LSD, the moral fiber of your character, which is put in you, or when you grow up, everybody grows up with different morals according to their culture. Okay, when you take acid, your mind expands beyond these moral characteristics and your concepts of right and wrong. So you step out beyond those bounds, and when you step out beyond those bounds, the imagination begins to take over.